What do you think a human trafficking victim looks like? Where do you think they live? Maybe you're like me and you think of trafficking as something that happens in some far off place or where kids are snatched off the street, never to be seen by their family again. Let me tell you a story. I'm 5 years old when my mom gets married, and along with this new father figure in my life, we enter into a new, very strict cult-like religion. I'm 11 when my stepfather begins coming into my room and having sex with me as part of the grooming process. I'm 12 when I'm handed off to a strange man in the back room of a bar or liquor store on my stepfather's sales route, and he takes me to have sex. One of hundreds of experiences I'll have like this over the next 5 years. I'm 13 when I'm taken to have the first of 2 abortions because we've got to keep the secret safe and maintain the image of upstanding religious family. I begin smoking and using alcohol as coping mechanisms, and I go from being seen as a shy, quiet girl to a belligerent, troubled teen. I'm 15 when I try to tell my mom, but she doesn't want to hear. And in anger and complete desperation, I pull a gun on my stepfather unsuccessfully, where he stabs me and tells me if I ever speak of any of the things that are happening, that I will be killed. I have food and favorite clothing withheld from me if I don't comply. And eventually, I'm so confused about my own physical desires that not only do I act out sexually, but I go to my stepfather for sex. It's something that I will carry so much shame and guilt around for many years to come. I'm home every single night, and by all outer appearances, we look like any other American family. Think this is an unusual case? More than likely, you've walked past, sat next to, or encountered a human trafficking victim at least once in your life. And though there's probably no way that you can spot a trafficking victim, the first way to eradicate this modern-day slavery is to break the myths and the ignorance that surround it. You want to know how much of a myth this is? I was trafficked, and I didn't even know it until 6 years ago when I was telling my story of child abuse, and someone who happened to be a human trafficking advocate was in the audience and contacted me and informed me that what I had experienced was indeed trafficking. It was then that I began to educate myself and made it my mission to speak out. And though my story isn't every trafficking victim's story, it's more common than you think. You see, human trafficking is big business, bringing in more than $150 billion every year globally, with $99 billion of that going to sex trafficking alone. That's more money than Amazon makes every year. Just think about that. And human trafficking affects people of all backgrounds, races, status, and gender. And though most sex trafficking victims are female, males aren't immune to it. And human trafficking isn't something that just happens in other countries. It happens right here in the U.S. with Texas, New York, and Ohio being ranked among some of the top states for human trafficking in our country. As a matter of fact, just a few weeks ago, there was this bust that happened right here in Ohio. But because of the silence that surrounds this, many probably didn't even hear about it. And like I said, though you probably won't be able to spot a victim or even get them out of their situation because it's so hard to get victims to speak out, even for professionals, there are ways that you can get involved. There's a human trafficking phone number and website where you can go and educate yourself on what human trafficking is and just where it's happening. And guess what? It's getting bigger every year. You can even take training to become an advocate. But most important is that you no longer see this as some kind of far off outside issue. I want to see this industry brought down and that $150 billion turned into help for the victims who, like me, don't just automatically heal once out of that lifestyle. You see, I got married at 18 to get out from under the control of my stepfather, but it was many years before I could speak of my childhood. I went through psychiatric hospitals, shock treatments, suicide attempts, and drug and alcohol abuse before finally getting sober and having 12 years of intensive therapy, all while being treated like a subhuman by society. Thankfully for me, there were a few compassionate people who gave me the care and nurturing that I needed to really heal and to be able to speak my story as part of that healing. I now have the great honor of being able to speak for medical professionals, first responders, and at-risk youth. It's such a gift. I want to see that kind of compassionate care for all victims. The first step is that after hearing this, you no longer see this as an outside issue and you choose to break the myths that maybe you carry. If even one victim doesn't feel alone and feels safe enough to come forward and tell their story, then we've accomplished a lot. Imagine if one day it wasn't so rare to hear the stories of victims who had healed and were empowered and standing on stage and speaking up. I believe together we can make that a reality. Then maybe one day you'll be able to hear more people say something like this. Yes, my name is Kim Ballou, and I am the face of a child sex trafficking survivor.